So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That's right, it is time for Coffee Talk, where we will be diving into what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some news clips and having some discussion. And of course, you can find me in the live portion on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, where I don't know if I can see any comments from there if anybody's watching, but I can see the comments from the two YouTube channels. And I do read through as many of those comments as is reasonable for those of you who are listening and don't have the benefit of seeing what's going on. And naturally, there's also Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, as we get ready to dive into what is going on in the world here today. Dusty joining us today. For those of you who can see, there's Dusty sleeping in the chair behind me. No other felines in the room currently. Oh, and thanks to whoever it was, because there's never a note, so I can't be sure. I suspect I know who it was, but whoever it was that sent the bag of cat food to our P.O. box, I'll take all the cat food I can get because we go through a ton of it, so very much appreciated. I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in thus far in the live portion on YouTube and say hello. I see Helter is here today. Donna Beaver reminding people to thumbs up, like, and share. Please do if you don't mind. Every little bit. Dragon is here. Brian is here. Boogers is here. Keisha is here. Keisha, I don't think I've seen you for a minute. Urban Angst is here. Lucky Luciano is here. As we get ready to dive into the crazy world we are forced to live in. Wouldn't be so bad if not for the people. Mostly the people in charge who think they know better and want to make decisions for us instead of with us, as we get ready to dive around. Oh, and by the way, here's my short from this morning. I put up a short this morning, and I'll show it to you here really quickly. I'll try to show it to you here really quickly. Hold on a second. I'll show it to you really quickly. This is my short from this morning. Hold on a second. I wasn't ready. And the short, of course, is in response to how many comments that I get on some of the videos that I do or some of the podcasts that I do. And people are like, you need to learn your history, brah, because immigrants built this country. You know, why has everybody got to call me brah now? Yo, brah, let me tell you something. Shut up. And Keisha says, yes, they've been sick, recently got diagnosed with cancer. Really? I hope you'll be all right. That's unfortunate. But I get tired of hearing that from people because there is a huge difference between the immigrants that so-called built this country and the ones that are crossing the border now. And I'll go ahead and run that short for you here really quickly so that you can see it if you haven't. And please do check the short out on Coffee Talk. So I'll go ahead and play that. That I need to learn my history because immigrants built this country. Well, let me tell you, there's a huge difference between the immigrants that built this country and the immigrants that are coming here now. The immigrants who built this country didn't get free food and free clothing and free medical and free school and free this, that, and the other. They came here not for a handout, but to put their hand in. Welfare didn't even exist. It was work or die. And they understood that when they came here. And so they built something and they contributed something and they wanted to be part of something. They didn't come here and sit here for decades and not learn the language and not integrate into the culture and not work and just loaf and live off the taxpayer. That sort of thing was impossible in those days. So please stop comparing the immigrants that built America, whether they were good or bad, to the ones that are coming here now, because most of them are not like that. Whether you agree or disagree, that's my opinion on the matter. That's my opinion on the matter. because the immigrants who so-called built America came here with an ideal, with a vision. They wanted to do something. They wanted to build something, even if they didn't need to be huge, fancy celebrities and wealthy. They wanted to have an opportunity to have a home, to raise a family, to make sure there was food on the table, things that they couldn't do where they were. And so they came here and they broke their backs trying to achieve it, whether they were good, bad, or ugly. Okay, you can respect that. And there are still people who come here with that mindset, but most of the people that are flooding over our border with that open invitation that they received are not coming here to contribute. They're coming here to take something. And the only thing they bring with them is the mess that they allegedly are leaving behind in the country they came from. They're not bringing a work ethic. They're bringing beliefs and systems that are contrary to how things are normally done here. And it causes a lot of problems. And that's not just an issue with the United States. You find this all over the Western world now, where they're coming for a handout. There was no welfare back then. Do or die. You came here and you had nothing to do. You ended up in Boot Hill. And that's pretty aggressive, but that's how it was. And that's my own short, and that's up on Coffee Talk. Excuse me, don't know if anybody has seen that. And Urban says brah is the woke version of bro. Yeah, I know, but I get that all the time now. Everybody wants to call me brah. Booger says, looks like you triggered the California part of YouTube. Keep it up. Yeah, no kidding. And Gary Smith is here, and he says, and they were legal immigrants as well. Yeah, they were invited here, especially during the Industrial Revolution. They were invited here to become citizens and to work, because with the factories going up, there were more jobs than there were people. They couldn't fill the spots, so they recruited all over the planet. Some of them were taken advantage of, but they all came here trying to get something accomplished. Not anymore. And why should you bother? It's a welfare state. So you can come here, you can get a check, they'll give you a phone, they'll give you a place to stay, they'll give you clothing, they'll give you meals. They'll put you in school, they'll put your kids in school. You could be here decades and do nothing and accomplish nothing. Accomplish absolutely nothing and just take advantage, living off the fat of the land, as it were. And it just irritates me when people say that this country was built on immigrants. Immigrants built America. You need to learn your history, brah. No, you need a history lesson, because the people that come in here now are not the same. It's the same argument I make with the unions. The unions of today are not the unions from over a century ago that got the kids out of the mines and stopped 20-hour work days and all of that, and insisted on lunch breaks and things that people couldn't get back then. Those are the trailblazers. Those are the ones who got something accomplished. Those are the ones who deserve the accolades, not modern unions who are still riding on the coattails of things that people accomplished generations ago. And Sven says the unions of today are like Congress, organized crime. Yeah, really. Excuse me. And Peter says unions are communists. Well, they throw a lot of money into the Democratic Party. They sure do back them. With your money, with your dues that you pay them, without consent. They don't need it. They don't need it. That's one of the things I hated about that. Isn't that money supposed to be going to the workers in times of need? In times of emergency, or for a strike, or for a funeral or something? Now, this is the top news story. I'm sure everybody has heard this for all it's worth. And this is from The Intelligencer. The Intelligencer is the agency who put out this article. It says Mayorkas impeached for being in Biden administration. Essentially, that's what it is. I mean, that's kind of calling a spade a spade. It was deeply humiliating for House Speaker Mike Johnson last week when he brought to the floor a resolution impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and promptly lost as the yeas and nays, tied at 215 votes, but in a better late than never gesture, Johnson brought impeachment back up on Tuesday night, and this time around it passed 214 to 213. By one vote, huh? Yeah. 3 Republican lame duck Ken Buck and Mike Gallagher plus Tom McClintock voted no, along with every Democrat present in voting. A key change was the House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, who missed the first vote while undergoing medical treatment, returned to join the impeachers. Meanwhile, California Democrat Judy Chu came down with C virus and missed the vote. How convenient. 2 Florida members. Okay, blah, blah. I don't care who was there and who wasn't. I'm going to get to the meat of this. So Mayorkas became the first cabinet member to be impeached since Secretary of War William Belknap in 1876. Belknap, a member of Ulysses S. Grant's administration, was impeached for a financial impropriety scandal, but was acquitted by the Senate. Paid somebody off, did he? Unlike Belknap, Mayorkas is not being accused of any sort of personal impropriety. His alleged high crime and misdemeanor consists of following Biden administration immigration and migrant policies that Republicans regard as lawless, not just Republicans, quite frankly. So in a very real sense, his impeachment is a measure aimed at the president. There probably aren't enough House votes to pull off a separate Biden impeachment. Okay, big deal. Mayorkas got impeached. What's that going to do? What's it going to change? Nothing so far as I know. Without any question, this impeachment will go no further than a pro forma trial and acquittal in the Democratic-controlled Senate, but it will feed into the GOP's election year measuring on border security, which will include references to the impeached Alejandro Mayorkas as though he is an indicted criminal like you know who. Yeah. And you kind of saw it coming because Mayorkas is basically a scapegoat. He's a scapegoat for Biden. It's just like with the whole C virus pandemic thing. You have your predetermined scapegoat that will eventually take the fall if it comes to that. So Mayorkas falls on the sword. Nothing will happen to him. Nobody gives a damn about impeachment. It doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't do anything. So big deal. Big deal he got impeached. And it was a jab at Biden because essentially he was impeached for following unlawful orders. And you can make arguments all over the place whether or not the orders that are coming from the Biden administration are lawful or not. It goes against the fundamental principles of border security, but it was ordered by the president for the Border Patrol to stop doing their jobs, essentially, and flooding us with illegal immigrants now. As we catch up a couple of these comments real quick, Peter says, remember, Nazi Party were pro-union. Yeah, they started as a union. And D'Lo is here. And Sven says the money goes to politicians and DEI. It's all shit. Yeah, well. And it goes on to say Democrats crushing communities of color. No rich whites are hurt, but the open border yet only a matter of time. The people in Roxbury don't think so. And Helter says, and goes nowhere in the Senate, and he goes back to his job next week. Oh, well, how else can we waste time and not get legislation done? Essentially, it's a circus. And Dragon says, and the games begin. It's like watching a bunch of unpopular high school nerds if they were stranded on a desert island. And then there's Merv. Happy Valentine's Day to Big Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade. I hope you're prosecuted to the full extent of the law and you go to tax prison. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that because, I mean, she could very likely end up with her ass completely on the line now as every day there's more exposed about Fannie Willis. And Gary Smith wants to know if both houses passed an impeachment, what happens then? Well, Mayorkas will get a slap on the wrist. Bad boy. He probably won't lose his job. Once again, the district attorney of Philadelphia was impeached. What, 2-3 years ago? He's still doing the job, isn't he? He should have been out of office long since. Been out of office. And we're going to jump overseas. And here's something from the Daily Mail. If you're overseas, you'll love this. You're in the UK, anybody? Home Office pays to rent out 16,000 properties to asylum seekers despite housing shortage for Brits, as officials fear move could create ghettos. You think? Oh, excuse me. A stock of 16,000 rental properties for asylum seekers has been put together by the Home Office, even though there is an acute shortage of homes for young Britons and families. Landlords have reportedly been offered 5 years of guaranteed full rental payments by contractors working for the Home Office who will manage the properties as the government rushes to move asylum seekers from hotels. Your tax dollars at work, United Kingdom. But officials have warned the move could create ghettos, as these properties have been concentrated in areas where properties are cheaper in Hull, Bradford, and Teesside. The homes come from the same pool as those in the private and social rented sector and are being used to house more than 58,000 asylum seekers in Great Britain. This is more than double of those rented dispersed accommodation 10 years ago. The Home Office is using more rented accommodation so that Rishi Sunak's, or is it Rishi Sunak's target of reducing the number of hotels used for asylum seekers costing as much as £8 million each day can be met. How much is it going to cost to rent these properties? As opposed to 8 million pounds sterling, 8 million freaking pounds a day. 8 million pounds a day. Oh, man. £8 million a day. That's like 10 million US dollars a day. So I catch up a couple of comments here really quick. South Florida is here. South Florida DCL. Glad you could make it today. Urban says maybe soon woke cities will be asking Israel for help eliminating some of the freedom fighters mixing in with the migrants pouring upstream in the U.S. They might need it. And Dragon says increased prices for UK citizens. What could possibly go wrong? Each of these homes also will be refurbished at the taxpayer's expense. So keep working hard to pay your taxes. Plus, they also said that they would maintenance these properties, right? I'm pretty sure it said that in there. For 5 years of guaranteed full rental payments by contractors working for the Home Office who will manage the properties. So you're paying for maintaining those properties as well, and they'll probably also be paying the utilities. So yeah, another rent-free situation for the next 5 years. And then since those people have no incentive to go anywhere or do anything, they're going to have to revamp the program in 5 years. And that's more of your tax dollars right down the drain. That's incredible. That's incredible. Peter says some auditors are getting attacked while filming migrant hotels in the UK. I wouldn't be surprised. And Helter said same thing in the U.S. There's a town in southern Maine where a brand new apartment complex earmarked for illegal migrants who will enjoy a 2-year lease completely paid for by the taxpayers of Maine. And that's, again, part of my argument from the very beginning of this, where I showed that short. There's no incentive. They've got no incentive. You put me in an apartment rent-free for 5 years and pay the utilities. Why the hell should I go anywhere? Job, I'll get around to it. Learn the language, I'll get around to it. Why should I do anything? People are inherently lazy. They have to want to earn something. They have to want to contribute. They have to want to be good. A lot of these people, that's not the intention. They're looking for a free ride and they're going to find it. It goes on here to say approximately 50,000 asylum seekers were housed in 400 taxpayer-funded hotels up until the end of last year, but 50 were due to close by the end of January, and another 50 should be shut down by spring of this year. Housing asylum seekers in dispersed accommodation can reportedly cost as little as £30 every day, 5 times less than the 150 to put them up in hotels. Reportedly, this is the key phrasing. Putting them in these apartments, they say, can reportedly cost as little as £30 a day, as opposed to the 150 that it's costing them now, but not necessarily true. 30 is your minimum baseline. It's very likely going to cost more than that. Also, they're not accounting for the utility expenses and the maintenance costs, which are being covered by the hotels for that roughly £150 a day. So that's gone. That accommodation is going to have to be picked up by the taxpayer. So it's not, they say cost as little as 30 a day, reportedly cost as little as 30 a day. That's very misleading. That's very misleading. But, is anyone surprised that the Home Office is going to give you shady numbers? And then when somebody is held to accountability 5 years from now, hey, why did this cost 4 or 5 times as much as you guys said? And they won't be able to give you a valid explanation, and they'll pussyfoot around in front of Parliament and give like these equivocated, shady answers, and then somebody will be scapegoated for it, like there's one person responsible for it all. Urban says, and add that to all the policing costs, court costs, hospital costs of the local population that'll be victimized by a spike in crime in the area, not to mention the emotional cost. Yeah, and also school, because they'll put them in school for free too. They're doing it here. They'll do it in the UK. And Mel has joined us here today. Glad you could make it, Mel. And Sven says the cost is BS. Just for a room in New York, it's like $500 a night, one room. Yeah, they're not being honest with those numbers. Like I said, that's a baseline. That's kind of like when you see they put up townhouses somewhere, because they love knocking down wooded areas and building a community of townhouses all over the United States. And it says houses from the low 300,000s. Yeah, the model home, excuse me, the basic builder grade home might start at 300,000, but if you want any kind of modification to it whatsoever to make it look halfway decent, the price is going to keep climbing. You know what I mean? That's a baseline price. It's misleading. It's not honest. It's not honest. They're doing that so that to give the illusion that they're giving the taxpayers a break. You want to give the taxpayers a break? Send these people back to hell where they came from. Send them back. If they're not going to go through legitimate channels towards citizenship and earn their way, send them the hell back. That's the cheapest option. That's a hell of a lot cheaper. Speaking of cheaper options, we're going to jump from the UK to California. California. And this is a Daily Mail article. Real estate tycoon. Here's something that we've speculated about a lot. I've talked about this many, many times in the podcast. Real estate tycoon looks to buy $900 million worth of San Francisco office space as companies and residents flee downtown amid homelessness, crime, and work from home. So there you go. I've done a lot of speculation on this, that I think that Governor Newsom and his administration and the other lawmakers in California are deliberately destroying the state so that guys like this can sweep in and purchase huge areas of land and property for pennies on the dollar. I think there's some behind the scenes deal and somebody's pockets are getting lined to destroy these cities so that people abandon them or give up on them, or they abandon the properties, or buildings get burned down or become derelict. And then someone could come in and sweep it away for 10 cents on the dollar so that these guys can build their little miracle cities, their little 15-minute cities, their little mini utopias that they're trying to create. A real estate tycoon has set out to buy an estimated $900 million worth of San Francisco office space that has been left vacant due to homelessness, crime, and work from home culture. Ian Jacobs, 47, an heir to the Reichman real estate dynasty, has decided to extend his family business to California. Jacobs has worked with his real estate company, known for their fortune after creating well-known skyscrapers in New York City, London, and Toronto, and other wealthy family and investors. Hold still. To take on the deteriorating city. It's New Detroit, everybody. He has set up a 75 million in commitments for the new business venture that has been dubbed Project Eurus. According to his marketing materials, Jacobs has told investors the project in the Bay Area could take 10 years. His whole professional career has been around value investing in public markets. This is the first time he can do value investing in real estate. Max Raskin, an advisor to Jacobs on the project, told the Wall Street Journal. Recent building sales in San Francisco have been between $200 and $300 a square foot, meaning Jacobs plans to spend around $900 million, according to the Journal. He spent most of last year raising commitments from his family, other Toronto-based real estate groups, and received further funding from Latin America and U.S. family offices. Yeah. Is anyone surprised? Urban says 15-minute city coming right up. There you go. And Semper Fi is here. Let the party begin. As well as Cyberjack Sr. has joined us. Sven says Democrats destroy cities. Their buddies buy it up. The city becomes draconian and crime drops. Rent is raised. Communities of color suffer at every turn. Systemic racism explained. Helter says California is slowly becoming like Escape from New York. Well, that's more like RoboCop there, though, where Detroit was like being destroyed because of loans from Omni Consumer Product, OCP. They defaulted on their loans, and they were going to basically foreclose on the city of Detroit, demolish the entire city, and build new Detroit on top of it. Urban says the Reichman real estate dynasty made a fortune doing the same thing in New York. Yeah, absolutely. But I brought that up because, again, this is something we've talked about a bunch of times with large land grabs, abandoned neighborhoods, abandoned office space, and huge land grabs coming up from these billionaires who want to do this. They want to build these 15-minute cities. They want to build these little mini utopias or whatever they call them. There you go. This is how it's done. So is anybody surprised? You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be surprised at all, because that's how it works. Oh, man. That's how it works. Another article that we've been talking about quite a bit, because this is something that Donald Trump was trying to do, that the Biden administration undid when he came into office, and it's come drastically into question now. It's a Fox News article. House committee asks Colombia for records of foreign donations, DEI, and more in anti-Semitism probe. And as I've explained before, Trump, under his administration, was suspicious of colleges and universities and the donations that they were getting from the Middle East and from the People's Republic of China, from companies over there, making massive donations, billions of dollars worth of donations to colleges and universities in the United States. And the colleges and universities made a large effort to hide that, to cover up where the donations were coming from. Then all of a sudden we have this, or rather, to backtrack a little bit again, the Biden administration closed those investigations, shut them down. So now we have the war going on in Israel, and you have all these counter protests in colleges and universities, and it raises suspicion because then people are like, okay, follow the money. Where's the money coming from? Well, these colleges and universities that are having this problem have gotten massive donations from the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from Iraq. You get the idea. That's very suspicious. And the amount of money that has been coming in is billions more, even from when Trump was trying to have it investigated. Now, all of a sudden, they want to look into it again. House Education of the Workforce Committee Chair Virginia Foxx sent a letter to Columbia University on Monday asking for documents and information relevant to Congress' investigation into soaring anti-Semitism in American college campuses that reached a fever pitch in the wake of Hamas' October 7th attack in southern Israel. The 16-page letter addressed to Columbia University President Dr. Minouche Shafik. Columbia, is that right? Minouche Shafik. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Columbia trustee co-chairs David Greenwald and Claire Shipman, Bernard College President Dr. Laura Rosenberry, and Bernard College Board of Trustee Chair Cheryl Glicker Milstein provided examples of how, as Fox categorized it, an environment of pervasive anti-Semitism has been documented at Columbia for more than 2 decades before the October 7th terrorist attack. The documents and information requested are said to relate to Columbia University's response to anti-Semitism on its campuses and its failure to protect Jewish students, faculty, and staff. Columbia has consistently allowed anti-Israel groups to violate university policies and shown its commitments on anti-Semitism to be hollow. The committee is seeking all reports of anti-Semitic acts and incidents and related documents and communications made to Columbia administration since January 1st, 2021, as well as information about the university's own policies and procedures about how the prestigious New York City institution is supposed to deal with discrimination and harassment. And it goes on and on here because, again, they want to know about funding and international donations, and they want to know what the hell goes on in their DEI office. A lot has been asked for. Says they want to know about Columbia's budget mandates for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. They want to know about the donations that go to the school, where they're coming from, all this stuff that Trump was trying to find out that the colleges and universities were hiding, that the Biden administration didn't think was interesting. Didn't want to hear about that. They didn't want to hear that. Urban says this type of weaponization of homelessness is beginning around here. Deranged street addicts are being swept away from the gentrifying neighborhoods in Vancouver into small towns and communities. Yeah, and in those small communities, it's a bigger hazard because it's harder for them to deal with it. And then Merv says, better concentration of their power and control over us. Get ready, it's coming. Yeah, it's serfdom. That's how it used to be done in Europe centuries ago. It's serfdom, where you live on the Lord's land. You live there, you work there, you're allowed to live there in the home. There's no real money being exchanged. You do the farming. Mostly it would be farming. And you got your percentage, and the other percentage went to the Lord's house or whoever was in charge, the Duke's house or whatever. Their household got the lion's share, and you were allowed to live on that property, and you had nowhere to go. And you really, in most circumstances, couldn't leave that land without the permission of the house. whoever was in charge had to grant you permission if you wanted to go somewhere. And that's kind of the idea that they're trying to bring us back to. Live, work, play communities. Once upon a time, they used to call it in the United States. LWPs. Merv says better concentration of their. Oh, yeah, I read that. Peter says they may want to learn the definition of anti-Semitism. It still doesn't justify, however you look at that, doesn't justify colleges and universities taking huge amounts of money from foreign donors and allowing themselves to be influenced by that money. None of that is in the best interest of the students. Urban says we're way past serfdom. We are well on the way to dhimmi state. Google the term. Okay. Now, this is something that I thought was interesting that has been a lot of people are complaining about. This is a USA Today article talking about Kennedy, of course, who is running for president. Robert Kennedy Jr. running for president. Is he running independent? I want to say he's running independent. And I heard a lot of people say they like what he has to say. I've listened to him and I do not trust him. He sounds phony. He sounds like a politician. The only thing I can really agree with is when he talks about vaccinations. But the only reason he has a problem with it is because he was severely injured by a vaccination, which is why he sounds the way he does. He can't speak properly anymore. His voice is badly damaged. I saw him again in an interview with Jason Whitlock on his channel. And everything, no matter what Jason talked about, he didn't really answer the question, but he sort of roundabout led his response into talking about the C virus. And you know what I'm talking about, most of you, when I say the C virus. I hesitate to say the actual term. ScrewTube doesn't like it when I say the word. But every problem in the world is either rooted in the C virus or in Black people being in poverty. Every response he gave went back to that, it seems, and he never really answered any of the questions. So I don't trust this guy. But he did something during the Super Bowl that really pissed a lot of people off, apparently. USA Today, Kennedy family repudiates Robert Kennedy Jr. after Super Bowl 2024 ad mirrors JFK campaign. The Kennedy family disavowed a campaign ad from Robert Jr. that ran during the Super Bowl Sunday. The ad, created and run by American Values Super PAC, splices images of Kennedy Jr. into an ad that is similar to the Kennedy for Me ad from the Kennedy campaign that was run in 1960. Quote, my cousin's Super Bowl ad used our uncle's faces and my mother's. She would be appalled by his deadly healthcare views. Bob Shriver, the son of Eunice Kennedy Shriver, said on X, formerly Twitter. I don't know who those people are. I don't care what they said. I'm going to show you the ad. It should be on here, unless they closed it. The ad should be on here, and then I'll run the ad for you, and you can see what I'm talking about. And it's a very 60s vibe. Is that it? That's not it. It's a very 60s vibe ad. And I'm not seeing it. That's annoying. Because that's why I pulled this article up, so you could look at the freaking ad. But let me see if I can find it real quick so I can make my damn point. Because now the family is pissed off about it. Because they don't like his connection to the original advertisement that was run in the 60s. Which I suppose I can kind of understand here. Now let me and it wants to run an ad on top of me. Sorry for the delay, folks. The commercial used to be on there, but yeah, I'm going to pull it up now, and then you can see if you didn't see it, because I didn't watch the Super Bowl, and you might not have watched it either, so you may not have seen it.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through? A man who's old enough to know and young enough to do? Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. American Value 2024 is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Hopefully you heard that okay, guys. Hopefully you heard that okay. Peter thinks that Kennedy is an op. Urban says morticians everywhere are being silenced about all the white calamity they're pulling out of people's veins and arteries as they attempt to fill the embalming fluid, a never before seen disease. Interesting. I don't think I've read that. And Dragon says these days any attention is good attention. Yeah, negative attention works really well for celebrities. So the ad did exactly what it's supposed to do, get people talking about Bobby. Yeah. Urban says, is it just me or is RFK not aged? I don't know. I don't know. He looks old enough to me. And of course, naturally, Robert Jr. claims he had nothing to do with this ad, that it's all on the super PAC. He was like, oh, they ran that. I didn't know anything about it. It is what he's claiming. And it's like, all right, you may not have funded it, which never mind how much it cost to put the ad together. It couldn't have been too much, but to run a Super Bowl 30-second spot is about $7 million. So they paid $7 million for this spot. And I get it, negative attention aspect, plus it's got a retro feel, and you get a sense of the history. Oh, the Kennedys have been in politics forever, whatever. But don't sit there and act like you didn't know that they were going to put the commercial out. You at least knew. Even if you didn't make the arrangements or do anything like that, you at least knew that that commercial was coming up. Don't pretend, Robert. Don't pretend. But regardless, I don't trust that guy. I don't trust Kennedy at all. One thing I didn't pull up, touching on something that we talked about yesterday, was you might remember, was it yesterday or was it Monday? The time is running together for me now. They made a big deal in the news in Massachusetts about this host family, the first host family willing to take migrants into their home, because the state, the governor of the state of Massachusetts put out a call to communities that if you have spare room in your home, consider hosting a migrant family for the state of Massachusetts. And of course, nobody wants anything to do with that. So we read the article, and it's somebody politically affiliated in the township of Brookline that said, oh yes, we'll do that. And they got us a family so quick. They called us an hour later. And it's a Haitian family that's apparently or allegedly been sleeping on the floor at Logan Airport. A family of 4 that's been sleeping on the floor in Logan Airport. And they made a big to-do about it. Oh, look at this generous family taking in migrants. Yeah, get ready for the biggest culture shock of your life. That sleeping on the floor in Logan Airport is probably the best thing that ever happened to them. I know that's pretty mean, but I grew up with, I didn't deal with it necessarily, but I grew up in Boston in the 70s when a lot of Haitian migrants were being dumped in Boston. That's when the boats were turning up all along the West Coast. I think it was, right? The West Coast, boats full of people from Haiti. And so we got a lot of Haitian migrants, and we got a lot of Russians in the Boston area in the 70s. So they're going to take this Haitian family in and make a big to-do about it in the media. And now that that has happened and it's making national news, they're calling on Wellesley to do the same thing. Oh, we want Wellesley to step up. Wellesley is a very wealthy, prominent Massachusetts area. Boston, sort of. I think it's a suburb of Boston. I'm not 100% on that, if it's been annexed or not, but a very prominent, very wealthy area. A lot of big stately homes. That those are people that moved out there and live like that because they want to get away from everybody else. they don't. They want to get away from everybody else. I very seriously doubt that they want to host migrant families, but they're going to put it on them, and some of them might be political enough to do it, to try to make a point. That ought to be interesting if it gets to that stage. Also, that was already called out when they took over the gymnasium in Roxbury. They threw everybody out of the gym and turned it into a migrant shelter. And Roxbury, being a predominantly black neighborhood, was like, hey, why don't you go try that in Wellesley Hills? So yeah, now they are calling Wellesley Hills to do it after this Brookline family allegedly is taking in a Haitian family that supposedly was sleeping on the floor in Logan Airport. Don't know how much of what is true. You can't trust any of it anymore. Don't know what the hell's going on. I see Zane has joined us here today. Glad you could make it, Zane. But yeah, you don't know what's going on. Peter says they're paying these people a lot of money to take in these illegal immigrants. I don't know that anybody's in on the program. That's the first I've heard of anybody officially taking a family in. I don't know if there's a check involved. I imagine there must be, because what I've suggested is the only way they could get it to work is if they did it the same way they do the foster care system. You take in a foster kid, you get a check. That check is still taxpayers' money. And are you going to get enough out of that check to balance what you're going to be dealing with? Because again, you're in for a major culture shock, and you're going to have a hard time getting rid of them if there's a problem or if time is up. The state's not going to want them to leave. It's not like foster care when you're like, I'm sick of this kid, get him out of here. And they'll send a social worker or a probation officer or somebody to come pick them up. You might not have them a day. If you need to get rid of a foster kid, I bet you it won't work that way with these migrant families. Oh, well, we'll let you know if we can find a place. In the meantime, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder, I think. Urban says they want to be left alone, but they still vote Democrat. If I'm not mistaken, the entire map is blue. Yeah, Massachusetts has gotten really bad in that regard. It was already really difficult. The laws and regulations were really overbearing when I lived there growing up. It was already tough. It was already very strict. Possession of even fireworks could get you arrested when I was a kid in the 70s. The only thing that were allowed was like those little champagne bottle poppers and those little white pop things that you throw on the ground, the snaps, I think they call them. Anything that you could light with a fuse, you could be arrested for. People, even back then, you could get in a lot of trouble for that. You need a license to own mace. Back in the 80s, I had to get a license from a courthouse to have a canister of mace. So that's how strict they have been. I can imagine how bad it is now. I can just imagine. Excuse me. Urban says correction surrounding are blue, but Wellesley is split evenly blue and red. Okay. I don't know too much about the politics of Wellesley Hills. I just think it's interesting that they're trying to target Wellesley Hills and call them out to take in migrant families. And then you're asking for them to put people up in essentially mansions. The houses out there are pretty big. I don't know if I would want to risk it. I'd be worried about damage to my property. I'd be worried about theft. You know what I mean? I don't know what to say about that. I don't know why it's got to be our problem. You all know how I feel about it. I make no apologies. Most of the people coming here are not coming here with any good intentions. There are some, but most of them are not. And it would be a lot cheaper to send them back where they came from, which is what we used to do. That's what we used to do. That was the policy. Put them on a charter flight, put them on a bus, send them back where they came from, and try to block them from coming back again. Unless there's extenuating circumstances or unless they go through the correct process, which nobody is. They just walk it across the border. Welcome. Come on in. We legally can't stop you anymore because the current administration won't allow it. They won't allow it. This oh my God. And one more here. Urban says the best way to shut down a lefty arguing for an open border, ask them if they lock their doors at night. Yeah, I know. Excuse me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. Hell, it's hard enough having a relative stay with you. Hey, can I crash at your place for a couple of weeks? I don't know about that. And you got a foreigner who doesn't speak the language, who they have all kinds of crazy habits. They might be really unsanitary depending upon what part of the world they're coming from. We've talked about it before. If you've seen people from the Middle East and from certain parts of Asia, it's culturally acceptable for them to be spitting all over the place. They'll spit on the floor in your house. They just spit freaking everywhere. That's something huge to try to absorb and try to get them to stop that if they can even understand what you're saying. God. Now, pet peeve time. I'm going to pull up a commercial. I'm going to show you a commercial ad. This one cracks me up. And it's connected to a huge problem that we find in the modern world. One more here. Gary Smith says it only works with a good fence to force people to go through checkpoints where they can be examined. Yeah. Well, I mean, part of those walls where the walls were going up were pulled down and opened up. And then the rest of the materials were sold for pennies on the dollar. Now, this is a deodorant commercial. See the lady here? This is a deodorant commercial. This cracks me up. And it shows, it reminds me of Julia Roberts. And I'll tie that in a second here. Hopefully you can hear these okay, because I know the speaker is a little wonky today. I don't know why. But listen to this, and I'll tell you what's wrong here.
Want to know a secret? More than just my armpits stink.
Facts. That's why I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant for clinically proven odor protection everywhere. So I smell great all day, all hike, and all night.
Secret Whole Body Deodorant. Want to know a secret? More than just my...
Could you hear that okay? Could you guys hear that okay? That is advertisements, and this is a new thing that I have been seeing commercials for. Whole body deodorant. All right. Why are they advertising and selling whole body deodorants? Because culturally speaking, Gary says, yes, they could hear that okay. And Zane wants to know what we're hearing. It's the commercial. This is a secret commercial for whole body deodorant. It's a cultural thing now. This is something we're seeing with the younger generation, that they do not bathe, not regularly. All right. So you have a person that probably doesn't wash up regularly, that They know they stink. And their solution, whole body deodorant. They're going to take what they used to call a French bath. And they douse myself with perfume. And Peter says, how about eating a good diet and you won't stink? Yeah, that plays into it too. Your diet can have a lot to do with it. And Zane says they bathe every day. This is where to help the planet and conserve water is the argument. And I've been hearing this a lot in the last couple of years. People are, or younger people are bathing less frequently. And that's a huge mistake. We moved away from that in this country. That's why you see a lot of PSAs from the 40s and 50s, like that were played in public schools, where they would show you good grooming habits: stand up straight, wash your hair once or twice a week, brush your teeth every day, shower at least once a day, that sort of thing. Make sure you brush your hair thoroughly. Those PSAs that, you know, if you watch Riff Tracks or Mystery Science Theater 3000, they used to make fun of them. They were essential because in those days, people didn't bathe usually but once a week. If you're any Three Stooges fans out there, do you remember the old sketches where they would do the joke with the bathtub? What do you, why are you sitting in the bathtub? It ain't Saturday night. Because, of course, you would wash before you went to church in the morning. That was common. That was very common. And the government was trying to break people out of that habit and get them to bathe daily, or at least regularly, to fight disease. That's what really stopped polio in this country. It's not the vaccine. It's the sanitary conditions. That's why people come from the third world, where they also have the vaccine and they still also have polio. Polio is transmitted through eating or drinking something that has been exposed to fecal matter. It comes from living in squalor. That's also why there's a lid on your toilet, by the way, so that when you flush, the vapor doesn't spray out into the rest of the house and float in the air. That toilet lid is actually a sanitary feature. So we're getting to a point now where we've got generations coming up that are washing less and less to save the earth. And this is their solution. Yeah, body deodorant. And it makes me think of Julia Roberts, because I've read articles about Julia Roberts co-stars complaining about how bad she smells because she does not wash, and not wanting to do certain scenes with her where they have to be too close to her physically. God forbid there's a scene where somebody's got to kiss her or something, and they're like, oh no, I don't know if I want to do that because she reeks. She reeks because she doesn't bathe. This is what we're coming to. All those, relearning to be physically sanitary in the 40s and 50s to a few decades later now, and we got a generation coming up that doesn't want to wash to save the earth. And Urban wants to know what's wrong with a good old dust bath. And Peter says dry brushing will come in vogue again. Yeah, I know. And Helter says they think they got away with not washing. Brian says slobs. Yeah, it's disgusting, and it's part of your health. It's part of your being physically clean is part of your overall health. Period. Why are we moving away from this? You're already killing us with vaccines, and you're already killing us with medication, and you're already killing us with poor diets. You have to add this to it. I mean, seriously? Really? Urban says, funny you mentioned polio overseas. In parts of Africa, much of the polio cases are called vaccine derived polio virus, aka vax-induced. Yeah, they really don't trust it out there, and I don't blame them. And Brian says, I live for my baths. You should be clean. You should be clean every day. Gary Smith says, well, they forgot how bad disease used to be, but they will find out again. Oh, no, there's a pill for that. Disease, we'll give you another shot. Take this pill. You'll be all right. You don't need to change your diet. You don't need to wash up. You don't need to brush your teeth. Oral hygiene is paramount. You could get all kinds of illnesses from having a dirty mouth. No, pills. We got a shot for that. Don't worry about it. Anyways, we are at the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and start wrapping up. Again, you are listening and or watching Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. One last look at Dusty. Slept in the chair the whole time. And again, thanks to everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will see you again tomorrow.